Mozambique is one of the world's poorest countries, and efforts to boost its economy suffered a major setback after the discovery in 2016 of a massive corruption scandal. $2 billion that were meant to help those most in need were siphoned off. Now, 19 former government officials, including those from the highest reaches of power, are on trial, as Mobin Nasir reports.
It's the biggest scandal to hit Mozambique, and the list of the accused is so long that a special tent has been set up inside the country's maximum security prison to fit all the defendants. 19 people have been charged with blackmail, forgery, embezzlement and laundering $2.2 billion. Among those on trial is the son of former President Armando Guebuza Ndambe and the country's former finance minister Manuel Chang. He's being extradited from South Africa, where he was arrested in 2018 while trying to flee to Dubai.
As the fact stands now, the accused is not immune from prosecution and has been duly indicted by the Mozambican government. The accused will therefore be handed over to the Mozambican authorities to stand trial.
Commonly referred to as the tuna bond scandal, the case revolves around funds that were meant to be spent on creating jobs for coastal communities. Between 2013 and 2014, 3 companies took loans worth $2.2 billion from international lenders. The deals were backed by the government, but done without the approval of the country's parliament. The money was meant to be used to buy a large tuna factory, boats and other equipment for fishermen. But in 2016, auditors found that vast sums of the money had been misappropriated. Mozambique has already been suffering from a militant insurgency that's left more than 2,600 dead and displaced thousands of others.
This was a tourism area, fishing, good economy, people had a good way of life, but guess what? Insurgents, terrorists come in, rip families apart, burning their homes, killing people, raping women, just exploiting a good way of life. And so the World Food Program is now in here trying to bring hope to people. 715,000 people that we're now supporting.
But the revelation of the massive embezzlement scheme led many foreign lenders and donors to cut off their funding. And the World Food Program says without that international support, many Mozambicans are at risk of starvation. The local currency has lost a third of its value since the beginning of 2020, and inflation is soaring. Prosecutors want the stolen money to be paid back with interest. But even if the accused are found guilty of the crimes, repatriating funds from overseas could take a while. In the meantime, the suffering of ordinary people will only worsen. Mobin Nasir, TRT World.
Well, for more on this, Agnes Gitau joins us now from London. She's managing partner at GBS Africa, an advisory services firm focused on the continent's economic and political issues. Good to have you back with us, Agnes. This is considered to be Mozambique's biggest corruption scandal. As we heard there, the government at the time took out $2 billion worth of loans that were meant to be used to support the economy. Instead, they disappeared elsewhere. Can you tell us more about how that money was supposed to be spent and where it actually went?
Thank you very much, Oscar, for having me. You're absolutely right. The money was meant to promote or scale Mozambique's blue economy, really focusing on creating economic activity for the coastal people, for the coastal Mozambicans. So they were meant to build a shipyard, they were meant to boost maritime security, and also improve facilities for the fishermen and fisherwomen in the country. As you heard, the money obviously ended up in people's pockets, government officials working closely with bank officials, and obviously it never got to address the issues it was meant to, which is another story, another corruption story from the continent.
Now, the government at the time admitted to the full scale of the borrowing in 2016, and that's when everything really unraveled, triggering a deep financial and economic crisis in Mozambique. Can you tell us more about the economic impact that the scandal has had on Mozambique's economy?
Look, this we're looking at when this came to the scale, when everybody discovered what was happening. What this was back in 2016, but the impact of the economy, as your reporter said, obviously international donors pulled off their support to the level of about $265 million per year, which goes to public services like education and healthcare. The Mozambican currency tipped, it shrank by 70%. The economy, the GDP growth rate dropped from 6.7 to about 3.8%, Oscar, just when this news broke. So this is already a very poor country. So imagine the impact this crisis, this financial crisis and economic crisis had on the people of Mozambique. About 1.7 million people were plunged into poverty. And according to the Center for, I think it's called CIP, Center for Integrity Studies, they reckon the cost of this corruption to the Mozambican government is close to about $10 billion. The debt repayments, debt cancellation, the interest rates, the cost of public service, and obviously the amount of money that they lost from the donor community. So a crisis that was just influenced by just a couple of guys, really.
Now, Mozambique's former finance minister, Manuel Chang, has been identified as a key player in this scandal, but interestingly, he's actually not involved in the corruption trial as yet because he's been in South Africa, and South African authorities have just agreed to extradite him back to Mozambique. How big of a role did the former finance minister play in all this?
Look, remember, he's the one who signed off these loans. The only challenge is this was not presented to Parliament for Parliament to scrutinize and authorize. So he signed off. We don't know why was he under duress to sign off these loans. Obviously, he fled the country back in 2018. So he's absolutely culpable. He was the man in charge. He was supposed to guide the government of the day, the government of Geboza. But you know clearly that the son of the former president, President Geboza, is also involved in this scandal. So there is a lot of high-profile government officials who are linked to this scandal, and suddenly the man who was at the core of it, the man who was responsible for guiding and advising the government in his portfolio, the finance minister, was Manuel Chang. However, obviously, and of course, you've heard there are accusations that he received about $10 million from the company, the Abu Dhabi-based company that was sort of the middle company that was negotiating this deal. So apparently he's supposedly to have received about $10 million in bribe. So certainly culpable, and I do hope that once he's extradited, he's given a chance to stand trial also.
Okay, Agnes Gitau from GBS Africa. We'll have to leave it there, but thank you as always for sharing with us your analysis. We appreciate it.